Hello everybody, Father Scott Vanderveer here, and my question for you today is, do you like to exercise? Do you like it? Do you choose it? It's interesting when you meet someone who says, I love exercise, because exercise is about pushing yourself beyond the bounds of comfort. Now, we do get a reward when we exercise, and there's multiple ways that we're rewarded. One of them, maybe the most immediate, is the release of that feel-good chemical we call endorphins that can only be released when we push ourselves beyond the levels of comfort and normalcy. It's our body's way of helping us get through a real strenuous push by releasing a feeling that all is well. We're grateful to have that feeling of endorphins that make it possible to keep pushing even when our bodies are saying, this is more than I like to do. I myself find that I never choose exercise as like, what should I do right now? What would be really fun? Rarely am I like, I'd like to exercise, but I do it because it's good for me. And I find that after I do it, I'm almost always glad I did. I almost always am glad that I went for the walk instead of taking the nap. I'm almost always glad that I chose to do the thing that is more strenuous and better for my body, mind, and spirit. It's almost always true that I am rewarded emotionally for my exercising as much as I am by the endorphins that are now coursing through my bloodstream. The thing that exercise does is it forces us to push beyond what our abilities have been able to accomplish up until that point. So like a good example of this is weightlifting. When we are training with weights, we are saying, I'm going to try to lift this thing that I can't lift, but I'm going to strain against this weight until it's something I can lift. It is the straining against that builds the strength. So that happens in life too. There are many people who are parents of children with significant disabilities, illnesses, or conditions that make life very challenging. Many of them will say, when I was young, I had a premonition of having a loved one dependent on me with a very serious condition. They said sometimes I would be walking in a mall or on the street and I would see a parent with a child who has something much like the child I have today. And they'll say, the younger version of me said, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I don't know how that parent does that. I could never do that. That is interesting, isn't it? That sometimes we look back and realize a younger version of ourselves told ourselves that we couldn't do something that we were later asked to do. And many of the things that we're asked to do that are very strenuous, emotionally and spiritually, are things that are common. Losing a spouse is common. It's ordinary. It's almost definite that one of us will die first. It would be unusual. It would make the newspapers if we both died at the same time on the same day. Usually those stories wind up making the news because they're extraordinary. They contain tragedy or drama within them. So when we lose a spouse of natural causes ahead of our own expiration date, so to speak, we need not be shocked. After all, that is the most normal thing in the world, to lose a spouse. So this is where we are when we consider some of the challenges that life throws our way. How are they like exercise? How are they asking us to strain against an experience that we have never had before? Much like an athlete who's trying to lift a barbell that is too heavy for them to lift. But it is the straining, it is the repetition of repeated flexing of smaller weights, and then heavier weights, and then yet heavier weights that allow the person to eventually be able to move the weight. Is that not also what it's like in life? If we're training, perhaps we are able to ready ourselves for the challenges ahead. It's interesting that we talk about faith as being a practice. Certain things you practice. You practice law, you practice medicine, you practice music and sports. You practice faith. I think that's interesting because I think a lot of things in life feel like marathons or feel like tournaments. They feel like championships or like the playoffs. And we can't possibly be ready for the playoffs if we haven't been training for them, if we haven't been practicing, right? Practicing our religion. A person who is practicing is preparing for the tournaments ahead. And of course, in life, sometimes the tournaments are not announced beforehand. All of a sudden, we find ourselves with a baton in our hand, ready to start a long race. And we're like, no, I'm not prepared for this. But the tornado or the stroke or the job loss doesn't always give us a warning. It sometimes comes like that. So, how are we practicing for the things that are ahead? How are we exercising so that our body will be able to carry the groceries in? So that we will be able to find out that the elevator is broken at our Airbnb that's on the 5th floor with the beautiful view of the city. How will we be able to meet life's challenges if we are not practicing for them, if we are not exercising our muscles? Just some thoughts for this day and for our continuing journey looking through the scriptures one day, 1 week at a time. May God bless each and every one of you always.